politically with the will of the voters behind him more and more and more. And all those ideas are what Bernie Sanders stands for and has fought for many years. So what's the best way for him to contribute to the possibility of bringing them into reality? By not running for president. Bernie, you're old as hell, man. That's very true. Too old, I'm afraid. In 8 years, there's a distinct possibility that you will have declined into a lurching, vacant-eyed Ronald Reagan character. We don't need that. It's not time for another 80-year-old president. The movement needs young blood. A new generation of political leadership is already bursting forth. Bernie, take satisfaction in the knowledge that you played a role in pulling these left-wing ideas in the mainstream. You will not be president, though, and that's fine. And I really don't, I really do agree with that. Like, in an ideal world, Bernie wouldn't have to run. But right now, I really just don't think there's anyone out there who is smart enough, viable enough to carry these ideas. And I really think that for that reason, at least Bernie is torn for a little bit, because I just don't know who is going to be able to take his place, who's actually going to be able to take these ideas. I feel really, really, really comfortable with Bernie in spite of the fact that he's really, really old. I mean, no one can defend his age. It's a big problem. Probably the biggest problem with him running a presidential campaign. I was talking with my parents, actually, and their friends, which are, like, pretty, like, conservative, like, very kind of centrist, I would say. Some are more left than others. I think, like, the moms are more left, and my dad and the dad's the friend is a little bit more kind of like centrist. And pretty much what they said was, like, if we could put Bernie in a time machine, I'd be fine with that. I was like, whoa, really? And I think that's very telling. I know the kind of support he get. If we could if we could invent a time machine and, like, or de-ageify him in some way, I think it would be so incredible. But the age is something that I personally hate. I hate the fact that he's old, and I don't know what to do about it. And I don't think it's going to really work. So, yeah, here's the proposal of Hamilton Nolan saying, here is what Bernie Sanders should do. Endorse a Democratic presidential candidate who will best carry out his own ideas. I don't give a damn who it is, Warren, Kamala Harris, or Sherrod Brown, or whoever. And that's the thing, I really don't think there's too many people who can carry out ideas that are politically viable to win. You got Elizabeth Warren with the DNA thing. I mean, I think she can overcome it, but it could be a big deal. It could be something that could distract Americans for the policies that they hate, the policy of the elite that they hate, and the policies that Elizabeth Warren has that are very, very popular. I mean, could pick one and get behind them from the very beginning. Any solid, top-tier, true left-wing candidate, barring a serious screw-up, should be able to win the Democratic nomination. And Bernie Sanders hands them all of his supporters on a platter. And pretty much out of the people I have named, I think it's Sherrod Brown. I think it's Sherrod Brown out of Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Sherrod Brown. I don't think Kamala Harris is going to be very effective in it. I don't think she's truly left-wing enough. I don't think she has that record. Really worried about Elizabeth Warren. I would really like her, but I just don't think... I think she's also very polarizing. Sherrod Brown is probably the safest bet because he does have some pretty solid left-wing in his past. He's from Ohio, something I like. And also, if Bernie Sanders comes in, that could be a very, very huge deal. So, out of all those people, and I do really, really want to wait and see who runs, but we have to consider the possibility that Bernie will run. So in a large field, his endorsement could prove decisive, narrowing the field in some way, shape, or form. All those Bernie pretenders, left-wing pretenders. And by the way, Bernie, don't endorse Beto or O'Rourke, please, or don't endorse Cory Booker, because I heard him say, oh, Cory's a good friend of mine. Don't endorse him. Don't drop out of the race for him. It would be very disturbing if you put any support behind Cory Booker or Beto, because I don't think they're really committed to left-wing policies at all. Also, yeah, that is a somewhat problem that is going to have to deal with. It's very interesting to see who he endorses. So as an added benefit, the candidate may not have some of the flaws Bernie himself has. The candidate may be decades younger than him and possibly maybe not a white man. The representation battle, that wins in some way. And I really don't think, because, I mean, let's be honest here. When we're talking about a woman, the conservative media smears intensify 1,000-fold. You see with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they're obsessed with her. And you hope, and I really doubt that some of this is making a mark, but it's tough to fight that on a daily basis for an 18-month election cycle. And I'm not saying a woman shouldn't run. I'm saying they should, but I mean, would Elizabeth Warren, with the DNA thing, being hit after her again, and I do think there's something with her, she's very much still tied in somewhat, in some way, to the kind of Hillary Clinton pollsters and policy people she's been hiring lately. I mean, if she can really rid herself of that and get out from the DNA thing, I think she'd obviously be the strongest contender, probably Sherrod Brown second, but I don't know. Ultimately, though, Bernie could run for president. It would accomplish splintering the party of the left-wing vote in the Democratic Party, which would open a lane for splintering the vote of the Democratic Party, the left-wing vote of the Democratic Party, which opened the lane for an establishment centrist Democrat to take the nomination. I really don't think too many. If Bernie runs, though, I think a majority of the leftist vote would go to Bernie. Like a large majority of the Democratic vote would go to Bernie. I think anyone could. I don't think if Bernie comes in, he's going to suck up all the left-wing oxygen here in the room. But Bernie very well could shave up votes from Warren or Harris. And here's why I really don't like Hamilton Nolan's take. Harris is not a lefty. There's no evidence that she's a lefty. She is just as, I have not seen anything of her actually. I mean, she's voted all the right way with the Democratic time. She's not as right-wing as Chuck Schumer, obviously Joe Manchin. But I have I don't see her being a big vocal supporter of Medicare for all. I don't see her out with that AOC and the Green New Deal. Ro Khanna, if she could actually throw in Biden's left-wing stuff, I would be lining up to support her. But I'm not seeing it from her right now. So, yeah, that's the big ideal. So, we must not run to the center to attract Republicans in 2020. That's awesome BS. Hamilton Nolan says, do not run Bernie. Endorse. Don't blow your purity with an ill-advised late career power grab. Bernie, my man, I love you, but please do not have this up. He finishes off. All right. So, yeah, that's a possibility. I do agree. I really disagree with the fact, A, from him, that Kamala Harris is lefty. I don't think she is. And B, the fact that there is a major problem with the idea that I do agree that Bernie Sanders is too old, but I just don't think he would. I think he would suck up very easily the Democratic nomination. I don't think there's a lot of support for a Mike Bloomberg type character, and I really don't think there is anyone who could really out-left Bernie Sanders in terms of name recognition, in terms of record, and all that stuff, all that good jazz. Anyway. The Washington Post fact-checker Glenn Kessler has introduced now a new metric of lies for the age of Donald Trump, the bottomless Pinocchio, which will be awarded to politicians who repeat and by the way, if you don't know Glenn Kessler, just have to digress, his thing is, no, he didn't lie. No, there's no such thing as lies. Like, he's a fact-checker, and you should just wear glasses that are spiraling and, he literally does not believe in a lie. It's very, very frustrating. Very, very, very frustrating. So yeah, his whole thing is like, we can't prove that they're just doing it maliciously. We can't believe they're doing it maliciously, so therefore it's not a lie. And I mean, again, many, many fact checkers, including I think the New York Times, you get Daniel Dale out there. They have a much higher standard than we have, a much lower standard than that. It's a very, very high standard he likes to do, but he never, ever wants to call politicians lie, which is something I personally find very, very annoying. In a 1,400-word post, Kessler explained the standards of reasoning behind the new system to receive a bottomless Pinocchio, a phrase which gets no less painful to type or say, or probably for him it's going to be pretty painful to type. The claims must have received 3 or 4 Pinocchios from the fact checker. They must have been repeated at least 20 times, 20 times, and he does not wield the power again. There's a bottomless Pinocchio very lightly at all whatsoever. So this is always this bottomless Pinocchio thing. Kessler, you may remember, only described Trump as a Trump falsehood as a lie for the first time back in August. A baby born the day Trump announced his run for president could say their name, speak 250 to 500 words, and begin to name colors by the time that Glenn Kessler got around to calling Trump a liar. The lie does, again, not appear in Kessler's big bottomless Pinocchio announcement. And again, these fact-checking endeavors are, again, in a large percentage, I think Daniel Dale probably out of all of them does the best job. They don't call spade a spade. They say, is it a lie? Maybe it's not a lie. Or I don't know. I'm not sure. And they kind of go back and forth on it, and it makes you want to tear your head out if you're anyone's like, yes, he's lying. Okay. And it's like, you're very misleading, sir. I don't think you have the right take on that. You may want to edit. No. Lie. Lie. Yeah, so anyway, now that we got that covered, we now turn to another media story. Fox founder and editor-at-large Ezra Klein was perhaps the leading liberal proponent of the idea that Paul Ryan's hatred of deficits during the Obama years was misguided but rooted in something resembling sincerity, saying there was a real deal. The fact that he really cared about the deficits and the debts, and haranguing Obama for it anytime he wanted to actually do something. Now Klein is boldly stepping forward to say that, hey, this was a bad idea. I think we were wrong about this. I think you played me. Yeah, so Klein wrote on Vox, Ryan's reputation was built on the back of his budgets, draconian documents that gutted social spending, privatized Medicare, and showed the Republican Party embraced the kind of hard fiscal choices that Bush had sawed off. And Ryan presented himself as the wonkish apostle of the new GOP, rolling up his sleeves and running through the charts, graphs, and tables that made his case. I was among the reporters who took Ryan's reboot more seriously to move us to surpluses. I wrote of his 2010 proposal. Ryan's budget reforms are nothing short of violent. Medicare for all is privatized. Seniors get a voucher to buy private insurance, and the voucher's growth is far slower than expected. Growth of healthcare costs. Medicaid is also privatized. The employer tax exclusion is fully eliminated, replaced by a tax credit that grows more slowly than Medicare costs. So pretty much, yeah. What he was saying here is, through all these examples that I just named, this idea was bad. But it's all supposed to be he really just cares about the deficit. And still, he really shouldn't care about the deficit more than the lives of the seniors and people trying to get health care. Like, seniors trying to get health care, poor people trying to get health care. Like, where is the humanity in that, I must say? Yeah, so I didn't agree with Ryan's policies, he says, but he was at least making the trade-offs of his vision clear. He was a Republican who said he was going to do who said what he was going to do. Admittance healthcare plan included rationing, who offered something specific to argue with. That was progress. It was progress for anyone to destroy the safety net of poor people, to admit and write papers that they want to destroy the safety net of poor people. But the fact that they wanted to do it is a bad idea. And the fact that he wasn't even sincere about it all the time makes things really clear. And that's the legacy of Paul Ryan. In the end, a spineless fraud who caved his entire value system, supposed value system, the moment a Republican came to office. And that fact that he did that was made even more hilarious than when we realized that the Republican who would come to replace Obama and Paul Ryan would have to work with for the better part of 2 years would be a buffoon like Donald Trump. Donald Trump forced him to compromise all his so-called values. And I'm not even sure if he really had them in the first place. All right. That's it for us today. It's Newsflash.